going on, guys? Bearded Finds here. We're in the city of Ocala, Florida, and right behind me is Fort King. Fort King has a lot of historical significance in Florida because it was the longest and most expensive war between the Native Americans and the English settlers here. I'm with Amanda today. As usual, we're gonna head inside and see what there is to see. Stay with us. I think we're the only ones here, so we're gonna poke around. This fort behind me is basically a replica of what the fort used to look like, and it was constructed in 2017 by community members and people with their own time and funds. The reason they were building this fort is because they were looking for a place to establish for the city of Ocala. So originally this site would have been the city of Ocala. When the fort was being constructed, they eventually named it after Colonel William King, and its purpose was to administrate the Treaty of Moultrie Creek. The Treaty of Moultrie Creek basically relocated Seminoles to another Indian reservation in the Central Florida area. Originally, when this fort was built, it was made to protect the Seminoles and the Seminole land. It was made to stop trespassers and people coming in, and the Seminole natives really appreciated the support. So they actually were in favor of this fort originally when it was made. But there was a recession in 1829, and because of that, they had to pull all the troops out of here. So eventually all of the protection ran out for the Seminole natives, and they waited for the return of the troops. Sometime later, soldiers did return here, but there was a new treaty signed, and that new treaty basically said that any Seminoles in the area needed to be rounded up and moved, and that's because they were basically being expelled from Florida. So now, instead of this place being a symbol of hope and freedom, it became a place of hate. Actually, Seminole native Osceola made his first appearance here at Fort King. Eventually, tensions continued to rise, and Osceola wound up taking the life of a Wiley Thompson who was on the Indian Agency. And with that, the Second Seminole Indian War had begun. After 7 years of fighting, the U.S. realized that they couldn't keep up with the guerrilla warfare of the Native American Seminoles, and they withdrew. Eventually this fort behind me was burnt to the ground, and then 1 year later it was rebuilt. And once it was rebuilt, they sent again more soldiers here, and it was basically seek and destroy missions for Seminoles. So if they were found, they were killed on sight. So by the end of that 7-year war, they determined that there were almost no Seminoles left. Some that did run away and escape to freedom became the Seminole tribe of Florida that we know as today. All the ones that were captured were eventually moved to Oklahoma to the Seminole reservation there. This is interesting. Kind of just a door here. Whoa, let's head inside. So this looks like a reconstructed structure here, and I assume this would have been kind of like a lookout area, maybe for, you know, somebody to sit at the top and get a view of who's approaching the fort. You can see there are these little windows here. I'm assuming again that they've followed historical records and maybe mapped out where this location would have been. Have an observation window here that overlooks a pretty good side of the fort here. So there's a map here, and this map kind of shows the Second Seminole War. It shows where it all took place, and it says that Fort King sits at the intersection of all major military roads converging at the center of the state. So you can see Fort King is there at the top, and here's where the battles took place. There's Fort King Road, Fort Brooke, right there near Tampa. Well, we got kind of lucky because it's nice and cold out, and there's nobody here. There's not a single person walking around in the fort with us, so I guess you could say we're king of the fort. Anyway, we're gonna head out back towards where we started and kind of check out some of the other things that they have around. We noticed some other wooded structures, and it looks like a little garden of sorts that they have growing here. See some trellis in the back and some raised planters. Here's a sign, it's called the Heritage Garden. To all who read this know that David Laffey was dedicated to telling the true story of Fort King, the soldiers, and the Seminole story as it happened. And there is the man there, David Laffey. David Laffey was a native of Ocala. He served 5 years on the Fort King Heritage Association Board, 3 of which were as its president from 2015 to 2018. And he looks like he passed away. It says, for his leadership and vision, he will be known and remembered as an integral part of the Fort King National Historic Landmark. So let's go inside and check out the David Laffey Heritage Garden. So it's a community garden, so a little bit of everybody gets to come and plant Want to make sure we keep our hands off of other people's food and just appreciate what's here. Very cool. I got turnips, kohlrabi, corn salad, kale, radish, romanesco, endive. I'm not sure if I'm saying these right, some of them. Endive. Lettuce. Very cool. Very interesting. And then a bench over here if you decide you want to take a minute and reflect in nature. Nice brisk little walk here behind the fort. A lot of leaf cover. So very soft on your back. People with lower back problems. I personally have lower back problems. So this is a nice retreat away from pavement. So just off the side of this trail, I noticed a little bit of a shine, and I turned to the right and found this spring. Now, I did read online that there was a running spring in the area, and the spring has been here since the founding of the fort and before. So really interesting to still see this spring here today. I don't know how well you can see, but there's such rich biodiversity in this spring. There are bugs on top that are eating some of the bacteria. There's little tadpoles and things floating around. You have mold and all sorts of algae and stuff growing up and down. All of these things that are sticking in and out of the water. So as you can see, this hosts a lot of different organisms and life, if you will. And it's really cool when you come across one of these springs to just take a second and appreciate everything that happens here. It's about as natural as it gets. Something really cool about this fort and the land that it sits on is that archaeologists have found that the area was inhabited long before the Spanish even came to Florida, so that means pre-St. Augustine. They found at least 2 periods of occupation by humans, between 6500 and 2000 BC and 200 to 1500 AD. That's incredible. So just the land that we're walking on, you guys, is almost as old as it can get here, so something to think about. So one might say that this is where all of the history for Florida really began, right here. This is where the start of it was. And with that said, we're gonna head out of Fort King. It was definitely worth the trip. If you're ever in the Ocala area, take a swing on by, check it out, learn a little bit about where Florida came from and the history before any of us were here. Beer to find. Peace.